You're just on your 3 minutes. We're going to start in like 2 minutes.
Anyways, welcome to the second week of our class. And this week we're going to jump into some really important material, and it's that we can be content with who we are and what we have. And this is one of the most important things that I wanted to make sure that my children had, because I wrestled with some of that in my own life. And so I wanted to give my children at an earlier age some of the things that it took me a while to learn, or I went through some struggles to learn. And that's represented in each different chapter of the book. And what I hope that you do as you go through this book and you see different ideas of how to impart wisdom to your children or to the children in your life that you're working with, I hope that you take some of those things that you had to learn in your life and that you make a strategic, intentional plan to teach your children the things that took you a while to learn. Because a lot of times our kids have the same kind of personalities that we do, or ones that are similar, and we all struggle with some of the same things. But one of the most essential, I believe, and empowering gifts that you can give your children is contentment. It's one of the best things that we can have ourselves. And as you know, I wrote the book and called it How to Build Children with Integrity, because in order to build children that have integrity, it has to start with us. And so I believe that once I held my firstborn in my arms, I never wanted to be a more awesome person just so that I could be a great parent for that child. And I feel it's just a challenge to us to know that we can't give our children what we don't have. And so to me, it has always challenged me to live big, just so that I can pass that on to my children and give them the tools that they need to live a victorious life. But contentment is very essential. It yields great rewards and it gives us appreciation in our lives. Contentment sets us free to be some things without having to be all things. If we don't have contentment with who we are, as well as with who we are not, then we are going to always be fearful of stepping in to what God has for us to do. So we want to know that we don't have to be all things to be some things. Being content in who we are and in who we aren't, it will equip us to live without inhibitions holding us back. And contentment gives us consistency and constancy. It's not based on things that are beyond our control. I love the scripture that says that godliness with contentment is really great game, and it is great game. Contentment makes joy achievable. It keeps complaining out of our lives. It keeps us away from being ungrateful, and it locks gratefulness in. Do you find yourself often focusing on what you don't have rather than what you have, or what you're missing out, or what you're missing rather than what is going on? Learning contentment is going to flip you to a new way of thinking. No longer are you going to be concentrating on the things that you don't have, and that's not going to restrict you any longer. We want to get back to God's original plan. I call it the Eve syndrome, and I feel it's very predominant in our society to get our eyes off of everything we have, to get us to be focusing on the things that we don't have. And that will just cripple us in stepping forward to do the things that God has for us to do. But contentment will insulate you from envy and struggling and depression and all the negative emotions that accompany with discontentment. The word peace in the Greek is the word that says that it's the absence of negative emotions, and contentment will really give us that. But you know, it all goes back to the fact I was at a church service once and they were talking about peace, and they gave all the scripture verses, and I kept going, yeah, I want that. Yeah, I want that. But they never gave me the steps on how to get peace. So anytime that I teach, you're going to always find that I can find scriptures and practical helps to have you to garner contentment and to make it more predominant and put it more in focus in your life. So some of the steps, so how do we put that into the lives of our children? Some of the ways that we do it is we eliminate the Eve syndrome. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Eve syndrome. We can also learn and demonstrate contentment to our kids. We can guard against materialism. And I like that word guard, because we do have to guard against it, because God wants us to have all things, but he wants no things to have us. So I think it's really important the way that we show our children what our material goods are in our lives, that we can, have all things, but none of those things need to have us. And also, we can replace perfectionism with the pursuit of excellence. And we're going to look at what the difference is there, because we all want to be pursuers of excellence. But when you start to become a perfectionist, it can be more of a negative thing than being a pursuer of excellence is. So now the Eve syndrome is just kind of like, how do you see it in your life and how do you get rid of it? You know what it is? It's just where you are focused on what you don't have rather than what you had. Eve had access to all the trees in the garden, and the one tree she had her focus on, the one tree that she couldn't have, is the one tree that she wanted. And so I feel like a lot of times in my life that's happened to us. It kind of eclipsed the appreciation for what I had, because I was so aware of something that I didn't have. And we can all fall into that trap. In fact, I think it's a really easy trap to fall into, not just with things or possessions, with people. You can have a wonderful spouse or great kids, but they might not be good at certain things, or they might have a weakness where, you focus more on their weakness than on their strengths. And so I think it's really wise to eliminate the Eve syndrome, because then you can choose to focus on the strengths instead. And therefore, just like when I focus my camera, when I'm focusing on my strength, I can make the weaknesses blur out. And that's what we want to do when we're looking at what we have, where we're at in life, what our stage is. And we want to look at that even with the things that we have. Gratitude enables us to get through the most difficult parts of our life. My mom said, my mom had been married over 60 years, and she lost her husband in January of 2013. And 6 months later, she lost her baby daughter, who was an adult child, but she was her youngest. And she said the only way that she could get through the grief was to choose gratitude. So gratitude is something we can choose. It's something that we can learn. We can learn contentment. And I think that's really cool. Corrie ten Boom found out that gratitude enabled her to get through horrific suffering in World War II. Elizabeth Smart was a little girl who was taken from her home, and she was tortured and abused at age 14. And she said that the way that she overcame trauma was focusing on her gratitude for the positive times in her life. She overcame it, and she was rescued and came out of the situation. But Eve lost what she had because she thought she should have it all. And you know what? It's like we can't always have it all. We can't always be everything, but we can be something. I have learned in my life that I don't have to be everything, but I can refuse to be less than what God made me to be. And I've tried to give that to my kids too. Like, I wanted them to know that they didn't have to be everything or good at everything to be something, and to be powerful in what they were good at. And I feel like that is very empowering, just knowing like you can step into a position you normally wouldn't step into, because you don't have to know everything to know something. You don't have to contribute everything to contribute something. I think that just set me free so much. I wanted to pass that on to my kids. But don't sacrifice what you have, or people in your life for an illusion that something is more perfect on the other side. Focus and choose to focus on the things that you do have, and choose contentment. Let me see here. Also, I feel like, how can you tell when you're focusing on contentment? You can tell what you're bringing out in your conversation, what you talk about as you go through your daily life, what your focus is on. So, what you focus on with other people. Are you focusing on the little speck in their eye, or are you focusing on the bigger picture? So make sure that you pay attention to that, because you don't want to miss it if you're starting to be ungrateful. I tell a story. This happened to me a while back. Actually, we were on vacation, and I was looking, and a couple of my kids were on vacation. They were being so kind, and I was looking at my husband, and I was thinking, he's not always that kind. I looked over him, he's teasing a couple of kids. I was like, he's not very kind. And then I was thinking, and my husband is so many amazing things. I respect and honor him. He is just, I call him a machine. He's just an amazing person. But here I was focusing on one little thing that he might not have been exhibiting at the moment. And it was so funny. He came up to me, he goes, hey, you want to go for a bike ride? And then I felt a little guilty, and I said, okay. So we went on a bike ride. And then he said, hey, let's take a picture of us. I was feeling guiltier by the minute, especially because I teach these classes, and I was getting very convicted. And I literally prayed. He didn't even know, and I didn't say anything to him. I was like, oh, Lord, forgive me. Everything he is, and I'm focusing on something that, one thing that he isn't. And so it was funny because we went back, and when we went back, he went to help somebody, and I went, wow, he really is kind. And then he said, I'll put your bike away. And I'm like, wow, he's really kind. And you know what? It just shows you a lot of times in your life, you're going to find what you're looking for. The saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder is really true. If you're looking for good in people, you are sure to find something good in them. If you're looking for something that's wrong, I can assure you, you probably will be able to dig up something that's wrong. So it's just training ourselves to be looking for what's right, and to have that love that the Bible tells us is to be believing the best, in someone and in our situation. It's really important how we define success. And I think a lot of times the way we define success, our kids catch even more than what we say or do. But how do you look at success as a detour from your life, or is it the road that you're on? Do you look at success as what you can get or what you can possess, or do you look at it as success is what you give in life? My parents have taught me that the only things you have in life are the things that you give away. I had that really drilled into my life as a child. So it was no problem for me to actually it was a very natural thing for me to know that all I had was what I gave away. So it made it so easy for me to be extravagantly generous because of the way my parents lived that in front of me and showed me what success meant to them. And so I didn't find myself having to wrestle that much with some of those things. Do you find yourself saying that possessions that you can accumulate define success, or are there possessions that can't be bought with money, and possessions that can never, the rust can't go through and the moth can't, come through and break through? The Bible tells us, don't store up treasures on heaven and on earth, where moth and dust corrupt and thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where moth and dust do not corrupt and the thieves can't break through and steal, because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And that word treasure actually means a deposit. And so where you're depositing your energy, your time, your talents, your money, that's where your heart is going to be. And it's a sad ending for people that put all their time and heart and talent into making money, because the best things that God gives us are things that money can't buy, like peace, and to have confidence and to have faith, those kind of things, and love. Those are things that can't be bought with money, but they do take extraordinary amounts of time and effort, don't they? And so we want to exhibit what we believe success is to our family by showing them what we invest in. I think it's really important to do that. Also, success is not only for the affluent. It's possible for all stratums of society. In fact, the disciples were, after Jesus, died on the cross, the disciples were tortured, and a lot of them were persecuted for their faith, but they had very successful lives, didn't they? Because they turned the world upside down with their witness. And we know that their lives were counted, they lost their lives, but they counted it as great gain because they earned the kingdom of God. But I believe that their lives were successful. So remember, success is not only for the people that have great money. People that were living in the Holocaust, that lived for the right things, they lived successful lives, but yet they didn't have a lot of money. So we want to keep success not just to stuff that we can buy. Also, success can be defined with being achieved with a lack of personal integrity. I believe that success is personal integrity in motion. Success in a day can be something that you deny yourself in front of your family. I remember once, in fact, my son's on, but it's funny because I remember once when he was really little, we were on the way to see my grandma, and she only came in town once in a while, and I was really anxious to go see her. And that day, my husband decided was the day we had to stop and go look at lights. And I really didn't want to go look at lights. I wanted to go see my grandma, and I didn't want to go look at lights with my 5 kids in tow either. But, we went, and I didn't say anything, and we went and we looked at the lights, and then we went and saw my grandma. It was so funny because later I was putting my son to bed, and I always told him, God is going to make something amazing of your life, And he said, what is it? And I said, when he tells you, let me know. And, and he said, I know what God's going to do with your life, Mom. And I said, what? And he said, make you a good wife and mom, and not to answer back if Dad gets upset. But I thought, wow, that's a successful day, is modeling something in front of your kids that they can mention to you hours later and you didn't even realize they caught it. So, that to me is really success, because that went to the next generation, empowered, my kids. It was me exhibiting the power that God put inside of me to turn a situation around and make a fragile situation, make it better. So I feel like, redefine and remember what success means to you. So also, distractions and disruptions can create the greatest opportunities for you to have a successful day, because it can show your kids how to exhibit character through those situations. Sometimes the things that are happening to you are accomplishing things in you that will ultimately just define success through you. And I love that, because sometimes we look at the things that are happening to us and we don't realize that something can happen inside of us through those things that can ultimately just demonstrate the most successful thing in our lives. So some of the things like fortitude, strength, the ability to have faith even though you don't see the answer, the trust that we have in God, knowing He's our anchor. Some of those things are the greatest successes, and they only come when they're tested and tried. It's also interesting to me because when you look at the gifts of the Spirit, a lot of the gifts that God gives us, and that God gives good gifts, but a lot of the greatest gifts God gives us are the things that we give away. All the gifts of the Spirit are things that we give to other people: long-suffering, gentleness, faithfulness, meekness, temperance. All those gifts of the Spirit, those are things that are, first of all, many of them are obvious when tested. Second of all, they're things that we give to other people. So I think that's kind of exciting to remember. So Dwight Moody said, our greatest fear should not be of failure, but of succeeding at something that doesn't matter. So make sure that when you live out your ideas of success with your kids, that they're ideas that really do matter. Okay, let me look here. We want to equip our kids to be successful regardless of the challenges that they're facing. So we want to see like that no matter what, if they're going through something at school, if they're, maybe they're not something, going through something that's really tough, say, you know what, did you turn that situation around? Well, that was awesome. And, we have to learn too, don't just reward your kids for the grades that they get. Reward them for the time they spend studying. Recognize their efforts in studying, not just for the final result. That's why we want to remember that success is the journey. It's learning to work your hardest, even when sometimes the results don't reflect that. So it's really important to show your kids like, oh, my daughter played baseball, and she wasn't really that great of a baseball player. She didn't really have a passion for it, but she was so encouraging, and everyone on the team just loved, the fact that she encouraged them. And they actually gave her an award for being the most encouraging. And I love that, because sometimes we're like, how many home runs did you hit, or how much did you play in the game? But it's just like, oh, we sometimes will forget to recognize the fact, wow, you passed that ball to the other person and did such great teamwork. So we want to bring out those kind of things with our kids to show them that sometimes success is passing the ball. Sometimes success is handing that ball off. Sometimes that success means to deny yourself. And sometimes to have a great successful day, maybe your child sat with someone that needed a friend instead of sitting with their friends. And so I think to challenge your kids and give them a new idea of what you feel like a successful day is, and give them a few challenges for what you want, and say, sometimes being successful is to consider someone else first. So let's look at ways to, benefit other people this week instead, and let's see how successful we can be at that. And to applaud that. That's building a future leader, by the way, because leaders empower people. And if you teach your children at an earlier age to empower people and to look out for the other person, you're raising a real leader. To talk and to go up to their teacher and to have a conversation with their teacher and ask their opinion. It's teaching them to open their lives up to input to people that are smarter than them and that are interested in pouring into them. And it's giving your kids the skills that will make them successful in life, and which is to enable them to pour into and be an impact in so many lives. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that? Everybody good? So the other thing I was going to say is, when you see your child being kind to one another or generous or thoughtful, make a big deal about it. Make sure that, you don't discuss the negatives about your children with anyone, but make sure let them hear you sharing how proud you are of them and that you notice the little things that they're doing. We were at a family birthday party last week, and one little girl, she wanted to ride a scooter really badly, but there's only a limited amount of scooters. We have a lot of kids in our family. So she grabbed a scooter, and then the other little girl wanted the scooter, and the third child put a scooter down, but she just put it to get something. And that other girl that wanted it jumped on her scooter, and I went over there and I said, oh, she needs her scooter back. And so she gave her the scooter back, and she was kind of sad. And this little 5-year-old girl was watching the situation. She kind of tilted her head and she said, you can use my scooter. And she got off the scooter and gave it to the little girl. And boy, it was really cute, because my daughter was there and she picked her up and she made a big deal about it. And she was just like, you are getting a prize from the prize bag. That is amazing that a person so little can give up something for someone else like that. And even if you wanted to be on it. And those are the things we want to do. We want to teach our kids to really be proud of themselves and to stop a minute and to see how that felt, that you gave up something that you really wanted. Teach them when they do their room, take that extra minute and go up into that room and just go, boy, don't you feel good now that everything's organized? You did a job of excellence, and bring out the things that are really successful. I think that that's really important. We want our kids to want to obey us, not just to obey us. And so we want to give them, we want to lay down reasons why we make the rules, not just the rules. And I always wanted my kids to know that what I was doing as far as the rules were for their good. It wasn't just so that I could be on a power trip. I wanted the way that they looked at the rules in our home was going to be an easy transition to know that the reason that God tells us so many things to do and not do is for his good and for our good. And it's an easy way to do that when as parents, we're modeling that to our kids, not just, we just said so. Every time I was in doubt of how to parent, because, we had a lot of kids and I wasn't really, expecting to have so many kids in a short time, but I really wanted to show them who God was. So anytime I wasn't sure of what to do, I'd be like, well, what does God do with me? And it was so much easier that way to parent kids, in a strong way, because I knew that God parented me in a great way. So for example, when I was overwhelmed, I knew that God said, when I'm overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that's bigger than I am. So I wasn't one of those moms, like if my kids were having a struggle, I didn't turn away and just say, go work it out. I said, if you're overwhelmed, you can always come to me. So, look at those things that you're going through with your kids. And if you're having any kind of struggle or just trying to grab at some ideas, say, well, what does God do in that situation with me? And then sit down, maybe explain the whys of the rules or explain, different concepts, and sometimes even just to tell your child, do you think I love you more when you're obeying me or more when you're disobeying me? And sometimes just letting them know, no, I love you no matter what. It's a lot more fun when you're obeying me, because then I don't have to restrict your privileges, because, God's blessings are on the obedient. He withholds, the way of a transgressor is hard. I don't want to make your way hard, but I want to make your way. I want to, when you obey, I bring them to Deuteronomy 28 and 29. You're blessed in the field. You're blessed here. You're blessed here. And everywhere you go, And so every time that, they were obeying, I said, I'm going to give you the fruit of the land, But when they weren't obeying, I said, now I got to show you that the way of a transgressor is hard. So if you're not going along with the program, I got to make it a little more difficult for you. And I don't like doing that, but I have to show you that you can't get the same privileges. So just as far as looking at what God does with us always helped me a lot. Also to learn and demonstrate contentment. Have you been around people where they just never have enough? They'll get one thing, they're looking for the next thing, and it's just never enough. They never seem satisfied. One of the things I learned in my life, and I wanted to give to my kids, is I wanted to say, it is enough. It is enough. I have enough. This is enough. You are enough. And it's funny because even my husband and I will say that back and forth to each other, that person is enough for you. Don't be looking for them to give you something that only God can give you. So a lot of times we remind each other, to let people be enough for you. Sometimes we put too many expectations on people, too many expectations on the things that we need to make us happy. And it makes us discontent and frustrated. And it's not a good feeling inside. But when you can have that contentment that says, you know what, this is enough, it's just a great feeling. And you've been around those people that it's really nice to be around those people too. Practice the little joys in life. I think I give you a lot of tips in the book, on things that you can do with your kids to demonstrate contentment. So I'm not going to belabor them here. And you can actually write your own ideas right in the margin of your book and do those little things that make life fun and exciting, for the kids, just to make little things fun. Sometimes if you make little things fun, your kids aren't always looking for the next great thing. Like my kids had more fun camping than they did going to Disney World. They liked, running around and making forts in the woods and doing stuff like that. And we would stop and watch the leaves play tag, and teaching your kids how to just appreciate those little things that might go by unnoticed, And it was funny, my granddaughter did come over and she said, the one thing I really miss about my last home is the sunsets. And I thought that was so beautiful, because it shows that you're focusing on not something, huge, but something that you can just sit and watch a sunset. I think that was so great. I love that. How did Paul learn contentment? Paul had a lot of contentment. He talks about it in Philippians 4. And how did he learn to contentment? He chose to rejoice. So I remember my daughter was going through something when she was in college, and she got a journal, and she said, every day you were grateful for 3 things. And I thought that was really beautiful. When you're going through a hard time, even with your kids, before you go to bed, they go to bed, say, what are you grateful for today? And start your day off with it, end your day with it, and be grateful. Choose to rejoice. And he was unselfish, considerate, and merciful. Just making time to be a giver and teaching your kids at early ages to be givers. He didn't allow himself to have anxiety. He cast his cares on God. I think it's really important that when you need something, give it to God and then go forward. You have other things to focus on. I love when Paul said, he had an ailment. He said, I besought the Lord 3 times that it would depart from me. And then I said, your grace is sufficient for me. Therefore, I'll glory in my infirmities, that the power of God rests on me. I love that. And I've done that actually, where you're praying and belaboring something, and all of a sudden you realize, I have other things to do for God. I have other things to focus on. I'm just leaving that with the Lord and moving on. And so, that will teach us to be content, when we're abased and when we're abounding. Everybody can be, content when you're abounding. How about when you're going through a tough time? It's really exciting to me when I see people going through a tough time and they're just, nope, God's got it. It's exciting. And so I love to, challenge myself to be the same way. Peace that's beyond understanding can keep your heart and guide your mind when you're casting your cares on him. I really always believed that stress is carrying God's responsibility for your life. Like, I think that God wants us to, he doesn't want us to carry that stress. And I feel like a lot of people get sick and carry stress because we're carrying God's responsibility. We're not trusting him enough. So I think that's good if we just learn, if we're getting stressed out, what have we not given to God? It's urgently compelling that we be careful, the Bible says, to guard ourselves from every type of greed. Life is not about having a lot of material possessions. I like what they say in the Bible. It's kind of a gruesome picture, but I like it. It's a good word picture. When they're talking about greed and parasitic people that are consumed with what they get from other people, they say, the Bible calls them 2 daughters named Gimme and Gimme More. I think that's so funny. But, it describes them as leeches, and leeches are known for, they can consume up to 5 times their body weight. And sometimes we can pummel our kids with so many possessions, and, we make them into gimme and gimme more. And just like the leech, the parents don't realize the damage that's done until it's too late, because the host of a leech doesn't realize the damage done until it's too late sometimes. So we really want to be aware. We don't want to, create little leeches that are gimme and gimme more. We want to raise givers. And I've had so many parents of older teens come up to me and go, my kid is just so selfish. They're 14, they're 15. All my life I've modeled giving in front of them. Kids don't learn by taking. They don't learn to be givers. Kids learn to be givers by giving. And so at early ages, make a plan to just develop those little givers that, that can write those cards out before the holidays for people, or, involve them in the presents at Christmas time and take them out. If you're going to bring a dinner to somebody who's hurting, take them. I took my kids to Gilda's, and they worked with cancer patients. And I believe that taught them, after we left, I'd say, how'd that make you feel? Doesn't it make you feel good that you could cheer them up so much? And we'd go see their grandparents and sacrifice some of our free time so that it just wasn't always like, oh, we have a free day, what can we do for you guys? Like, we purposely and intentionally said, let's give up our day, let's go take, Babsha shopping. And to this day, one of my favorite memories was when Babsha put my son Jesse out with an electric lawnmower, which he had never seen the likes of. He was probably 8. And we were flipping it over him with, it was plugged in literally. And the girls were out, edging the lawn with scissors. But it's just so beautiful that at an early age, they were learning that their little lives can be such big blessings. And I think it really stayed with them. So remember, just because you can get something for your kids doesn't mean you should give something to your kids. A lot of times I have to remind myself that even with my grandkids, because we know that it's God's delight to give us the kingdom. He wants to give us everything. But if we keep giving, and we can create these, entitled little people, and we don't want to do that. So a lot of times we'll be going into the store, and I can get the kids something that they ask for, but it doesn't mean I should. And so a lot of times I exercise discipline and say, no, we're not going to get that right now. We're just going to look at these stuffed animals. We're not here to get a toy, so we're not going to get a toy today. And it's really good in teaching your kids like self-discipline, that every time we go somewhere that we don't have to buy them something or things like that. So, and we teach them not to live filling, their bag. I like the way the Bible says it. It says that, we don't want to put everything in a bag with holes. I remember once my nephew was at an Easter egg hunt, and he had a hole in his bag, and he kept putting the eggs in, and they kept falling out the bottom. So he only had the few that were on the other side of the bag, but he was so happy. And then all the other parents are just like going, get more eggs, get more eggs, And it's just like at little times like that, you can kind of just step back and kind of see yourself and see what your parenting style is, or maybe, to have your child that says, and most parents, I have to say, I've seen so many parents where their kids do have an overabundance, and some other little docile kid has like 2 that they managed to pick up, and they're like, go give them some of your eggs, so it is nice. But teach your kids and reward their giving. I think it's so wonderful that you can teach little people that their lives can be so generous, Now, on how to pursue excellence versus being a perfectionist, I have a big list of that in the book on page 17. But perfectionists, they value themselves by what they do, but pursuers of excellence on who they are. So we don't want to just see what we do and put all the emphasis on, we get devastated by failure when we're a perfectionist. But pursuers of excellence can learn from failure. I think that some of these are really important. Perfectionists remember mistakes and dwell on them, and pursuers of excellence correct mistakes and learn from them, like John Maxwell's good book, Failing Forward. And perfectionists hate criticism. They do not want to be criticized. Pursuers of excellence, they welcome a review. They want the input. And perfectionists have to win to keep high self-esteem, but pursuers of excellence can have a good image knowing that they gave their best. So really take that over and make sure that you raise children who pursue excellence, not perfection. So we don't want to have those. You might naturally have a child. I had naturally had a child that fell apart if she went a little bit outside the lines when she was doing her printing, even when she was just starting to learn it. But in her life, I had to teach her that it was okay. It was okay. We strive to do that, but every single letter that we make might not, hit in between those 2 lines. But some of the ways that you can help your kid in doing, pursuing excellence rather than being a perfectionist is be sure that they're more worried about having good character than they are about looking cool. Make sure that they're more worried about what character they demonstrate. Teach them to be kind to people that are being made fun of and things like that, and bring that out in the forefront and tell them not to worry about, what the other people are seeing, to, being cool and what other people think. Also, make sure, and I think that a lot of us are really in tune with this, but don't compare them against their sister or cousin or a friend. Like, wow, you got more goals than Susie. That's just not even appropriate. It's just like, boy, you played so hard. You got a couple goals. That's awesome. And I saw you pass the ball to so-and-so. And and a lot of times you might be, you want to be able to make sure that your child can recognize other people and celebrate with them, so that when you're saying something to someone else, a lot of times in my family, we were all big on sports. So I'd be like, wow, you are unbelievable. I can't believe you played a really good game. And I saw how you passed the ball, this and that. And another kid might say, well, what about me? And, I'd say, well, we're not talking about you right now. We might be talking about you another time. Today, we're talking about her. We don't have to give equal praise to every single one. We need to teach our kids, like, can you say how good of a game that one played? And teaching them to celebrate with somebody who might even be have something that they wish that they had. And I think that's really important. Also, help your child meet high standards, but make sure those standards are within their reach, and that they can work on being the best they can be versus striving for impossible goals. If you have a child who really struggles, I had a friend, her daughter would know all the spelling words. She'd practice them all. And then when she'd go to school, every time she wouldn't be tested well, but she would know all the words. And so my friend really just applauded her efforts at the studying and didn't focus as much on the results of the test. It's just, sometimes just seeing and knowing what your child is working hard and just acknowledging the fact that they're really trying. Kids learn at all different, levels. And so we don't want to be comparing them with someone that maybe just is a natural bent towards something that they don't. So also, have your kids learn from failure without being devastated by it. I just told one of my grandkids lately, I said, someone said, if you don't fail at something every day, you're not trying hard enough stuff. It's okay if you can't do everything. Sometimes you have a kid that just doesn't want to try anything unless they're good at it. Well, then you can never learn anything new. So I say, well, did you make a mistake? Oh, good. That meant that you were trying something harder. So, we really want to teach them that it's okay if you fail at something. I loved teaching my kids, well, we're going skiing today. We're going snowboarding. There might not be their thing, but you know what? You can still have fun doing it, even if you're not great at it. Just try it. Just go whatever level you can do it. And just, it's a really fun thing to help them to know if you fail at something, you're just trying something a little harder, and that's a really good quality to have. So also, give your child the ability to accept positive criticism. A lot of times my kids would have blind spots, and even at young ages, even at 6, 7, 8, you can tell your child, go ask your brother and sister if tell them one thing that you can do better and one thing you're really good at. And, teach your kids to be able to take input into their lives. A lot of people can't take input. Every child needs someone to believe the best in him and her. Make sure that we are believing the best and have their back, but be reasonable and realistic in your expectations. All your kids are different from each other. So what you expect from one might be totally unreasonable with another. Make their goals independently and encourage the right heroes. A lot of times I would tell my kids, oh, your papa and your nana are your heroes. And, I would really want them to see the people that were living exemplary lives. Like if I saw somebody struggling with a wheelchair in a child, and I said, now look at those parents, they're heroes. We really want to help our kids have strong heroes, especially in today's role models. Some of the heroes are failures. So we want to teach our kids to have strong role models. There's 4 ways that we impart wisdom to our kids. And it says it in scripture. It says those things which we have both, I've got the scripture, heard, seen. Well, I'm going to go through them step by step. It says that they will learn those things that we have both learned, received, and heard, and seen in me, do, and the God of peace will be with you. So those things which we have, they have learned. So in order for our kids to learn, what do we have to do? We have to teach. So teach them by example, word, and deed, and sometimes indirectly. If our kids are to receive, we do have to give. We give insights, vision, focus, explanations. If our kids are to hear, we have to speak, even when we're tired. And if our kids are to see, we have to demonstrate. So we have to do those things in order for our kids to know who we are, and we can pour into them and hopefully help them to start on our shoulders when they go out to live their lives, and they'll have some strong character qualities. One of the first things I think that God does for us is he makes us part of a family. And so I think it's really important for you to show your child how important a part of your family that they are, each one of them.
I'm not sure I understand.
Siri's talking to me. But we want to counteract the demise of the family by creating a super strong family. You know, and I think like when we're running around, we do a lot of running around with our family and just the way our society is. So we have to realize that we want to maximize the moments that we have, even in the car. You know, sometimes, you know, one of the favorite things that my kids like to do is to play the game where we say there's 3 favorite ice cream flavors or where they would like to go on vacation. And so they'll say, let's play that game. But, you know, just to get to know each other better in the car, take a few minutes to maximize your moments. But without a destination, it's hard to plan the trip. So nurturing and training your kids is so important to the vision. Building self-esteem. We had a little family mission statement. Do you guys remember this? It's all tattered and torn. But you know, what we did was we'd sit down with the kids and we would make it's the Budzinski family plan, even when they were really little. And sometimes, you know, we had one of them wanted to be a garbage collector or a lawyer. We had some really interesting motives, but it's just what we wanted to do as our family for the world. And we would put it all down here. We have our mission, what our vision is, what the purpose is, and some strategies like goals and ideas. And then we would laminate it and give it to each one of the kids. And it made them feel like they were like a special part of the plan and that they were part of representing what our family was. And I think that's really, man, it's really important to do because, you know, when the kids, they know that they have input, they'll try to live up to what they want to show the world. And then they will shine in that role because it will be something that they're defining with their own words, and they're going to live up to what they say with their mouth that they want their mission to be, what they want to be at school to make a difference. And they'll come up with their own ideas, and it's so beautiful because those things will take root and they will grow, and they will grow bigger, and they will go lead them into the direction that they're going to have for their entire lives. Some of the things that my kids wanted to do by themselves when they were younger are things that they are doing now in great ways when they're older. You know, it's really important that we demonstrate in our family unconditional love and acceptance. We are all aware of our faults and limitations, but giving your kids wings to soar is going to let them know that you love them for everything that they aren't as well as everything they are. I remember once we were singing a song in church. It was, bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me, bless his name. And I'm thinking, all that is within me is not like perfect. And, and now I finally see some of the comments. But what we want to do is God isn't intimidated by our weaknesses. In fact, he said he'll turn them into strengths when we let him. And so don't focus on your kid's weakness. A lot of times a strength will show itself as a weakness when children are younger. And so what you want to do is look at their weakness and see if that's a misdirected or misappropriated strength in disguise, and see what you can give your kids to turn that around. Now, when you're, if you don't have one of these books, I really want to get one into your hands, because this will give you the tools to do some things with your kids. And you can list each one of your children's strengths and see what their ways to encourage and develop strengths from some of their weaknesses. And it'll give you their names with their unique contributions. Some of these things will really help you individually apply things to your kids and see what you're working on, so that you can more intentionally and purposefully bring out the things that your kids are struggling with and turn their weakness into a strength without even having to, like live in that weakness part. So I think it's really important to keep your eyes on it. It's an interdependent and independence balance, because we wanted each one in our home to know that they were super, super special individually, but we also know that God puts the solitary in families, and we wanted them to know that they were also a part of who our family was and what we demonstrated to the world. And I think that that balance is really important to know. Also, to know that if you are going to be a good leader, you need to learn to follow. If you want to raise leaders, your kids need to know that good leaders know how to follow first. We always made a big deal about influence. We had little poems that we said about the little boy following the older brother. There was little poems that we read, and it's important to know that they're an example for good or for bad. And a lot of times we would bring that out in their lives and give them, different ways that they're leading people and challenge them with that. I know we do that a lot with the kids, because there's so many of them, and it's really important that they know how their little lives can impact and influence others for good or for bad. It's so interesting. Like, we have to remember, God wants our kids to have this most abundant life. He wants to walk with us as we raise our children, and as they raise their children. He wants to bless every one of your descendants. He said it would be before they call, the Lord will answer. While you're still speaking, the Lord's going to hear. You know who's a detriment to the plan sometimes? It's parents. Jesus lamented over Jerusalem. He said, how often I've ached to embrace your children in the way a hen gathers her chicks, and you wouldn't let me. That is an indictment against the parents. And in Appendix C in the book, I have some powerful ways that you can develop spiritual strength in your kids rather than, standing in the way of it. So go ahead and challenge yourself this week. I want you to look for ways that you can develop some of your child's weaknesses and turn them around into strengths. Ways that you can see what their gifts are, what their contribution is. Maybe engage them in a good conversation about what they think that their strength is in their class, or when they're with a group of kids, or on their sports team, or whatever they're doing in their lives, or in the family, what their strong part is. Sometimes you're not strong in all things, and sometimes the things that other people are gifted in sometimes can bug the person that doesn't have that same gift. And so I would tell them it's like a puzzle, where the part that's missing is filled in by that other part, and it makes the whole picture. So this part that's missing in our lives is to be filled in by this person's gift, and then together, like the pieces of the puzzle, when they're all fit together, you get the perfect picture. And it teaches our children to be more forbearing with one another too, because learning that, they don't look at the world the same way as you do. I would have all my kids hold a globe and describe what they saw, and everybody sees things a different way. But in your family, have some special family recipes. Make your family a special place to be. see the good in others, keep growing spiritually, develop some rules of war in your family, things that you won't do when you're in an argument. And, teaching your kids that relationships are bank accounts. You have to put into other people's lives before you can take out of them. And we even gave the kids bank account books and said, if you put in, let's write it down. And then if you need some help and someone needs to take out, make sure that there's something there to take out. I think the biggest thing to do is to teach your children to keep growing spiritually, and for us to keep growing spiritually. If we keep growing spiritually, we're going to naturally show forth the fruit of the Spirit of God in our lives, and let your home be a safe place for every member of your home. If whatever they're going through, I always really wanted my kids to have a safe place where they could be themselves, not be tormented at home, and to have a safe place where they could come to, and that they know that they would be loved and appreciated. They can work on their Legos without someone else bothering them. They all had their own space and we respected each other's space. I feel like, just acknowledging that your kids are little people and that we want to give them honor and respect, just like we want them to give us honor and respect. And we have to teach them when to speak up and when to shut up. And I think like a lot of times they'll watch us, and it's important that you want to teach them that you don't have to always say everything. There's sometimes where it's better not to talk yet, and then work out things with solutions. And have special traditions too, like special things that you just do as the family. We have a special recipe and we have little special traditions, and the kids really, liked doing that. Does anybody have any questions about just showing your kids about how to be a part of the family and teaching them contentment and just different things? Any thoughts or comments? Nope, nothing. Well, okay. Well, your challenge this week is, hi, good to have you guys. Well, your challenge this week is to maybe pick out, don't be overwhelmed with this workbook, but maybe take one of your kids that might be going through something, or maybe start with your oldest one and just kind of have some fun with this and write some areas that you want to challenge, challenge yourself with. The part with contentment, don't write down the things that you already, you're not really dealing with right now in your life, but maybe take something that you are having a little bit of a struggle with, like, okay, if success were defined as what you can live without, how successful are you? Where are you truly content? Like, just take a few of these questions and let them make you write something down so that we can take some of the, knowledge and turn it into wisdom by bringing it into our lives. And especially when I am part of the family, take the name of your child, put what their nature is and what you want to step in to nurture them, to round out the wrong use of their nature. So, and then your goal for improvement. We started the mission statements. I want to say that Daniel was probably about 5. I want to say 5-ish. I want to say 4, but I'm going to say 5 because he wanted to be a garbage guy when he was about 5. So I think he was about 5, maybe 5 to 9, 5 to 10, things like that. But I mean, it's even before that, you can always say, what are you going to do to make a difference in the room and things like that. Strong-willed, I love strong-willed kids. I love strong-willed kids because they're the world changers. And you know what Paul's mother must have felt like when you have a strong-willed child. You know what? I have a few kids that have strong-willed kids, and those are my favorite. And I say, they're strong, but you're stronger. So that's the thing. Like, I would say for sure, don't bring out the negative part of that. I would for sure look for times when that strong will is helping them to do right. And then I would also take that strong will and just fine tune it. Like, you can have a strong will for this, but you are not allowed to decide this right now. And stick to your guns. always do it kindly. Be sad if you have to take a privilege away. Be sad if you have to do the time out, depending on what it is. You could always give me a call. I'd love to brainstorm with you, because that is my forte. Strong-willed kids. I had many of them. I loved all of them. They're my favorite, and they're out changing the world now. And they all are. And I just feel like it's so easy to get discouraged with the strong-willed child. Like, I had one kid that every time we'd go on a bike ride or would be walking down the block, she'd be temper tantrums. And I'm like, 4 are happy. Everyone's staring out the windows. But I've got some great helps for you. Give me a call or throw me an email, whatever's easier for you. You can get my contact information off my website. I'd love to talk to you about it. So yeah, good. Well, thank you guys for coming. I want to end right on time. If you have any questions, just throw them at me on email or afterwards, and we'll get them answered. If you want to read ahead for next week, we're going to go through lessons 3 and 4. Oh, wait, was it? Yeah, 1 and 2. Then we'll go 3 and 4 next week. So join on in, okay? So thanks a lot. Bye-bye, guys. Let's see. Thank you, guys. They do make life interesting. Bye-bye.